Everything's set! It's on!
What is my mission?
Your mission is to go back from the future to save the future.
What is my objective?
Great Scott! It's all programmed in your memory banks. Great Scott!
Information found.
So here we go. You're going back from the future.
So I recently watched the Terminator movie series. I've actually had them for a little while, and I thought I'm going to watch them. And with no other reason than just, they're movies that originally that I liked. And it was funny watching these movies. In a spiritual sense, it's funny how God can speak to you even through a movie like The Terminator. You're just sitting back, casually watching the movie, and all of a sudden God's relating to you through this movie, and you're like, oh, wow. And what I was kind of getting out of it was, the whole premises of the Terminator is, it's these robotic machines that they rule the world and declare war against humanity. It seems kind of far-fetched, but you can kind of see how the technology's there for for artificial intelligence. And although I don't think that anything like Terminator is ever going to happen, I do think that that it will take us into realms of, things that are definitely abomination. I see people kind of Frankensteining things, robotically, robotic implants and stuff, and all the way up to, I've heard people talk about putting your consciousness, or even, your brain, who you are, and literally downloading that information, either making someone cyber, where their head, or a lot of their, organic parts like brain and stuff is real, but then the rest of it is just, machine. Or if there's a way to actually download your consciousness. All of it sounds ridiculous and absurd, but they are talking like this. And I could, and I did do a video about the abomination of desolation, the image of the beast, if you will, which could be something like that. I'm not political. I don't like talking politics. I got upset. I did not like the outcome of the election. I think that it was pretty messed up. And, I would have had a lot of respect for Joe Biden if he'd have said, you know what, hey, let's look into this election, into these irregularities. That would have been a smart thing for the man to do, a very smart thing. Because if they went and they looked and they went through all these voting irregularities, they checked all the machines. The thing is nobody, they would bring these cases to the courts, and guess what? What would happen? Nothing. They wouldn't even look at them. They said the media will try to tell you that it was. They threw out all these cases. That's not true. They wouldn't even look at these cases. They wouldn't look at them. And so now they're saying, oh, there's no proof of fraud. Yeah, there is. They never looked at it. Okay. That's what's sad. See, I would have had a lot of respect for Joe Biden if they'd have said, hey, let's look into this. Let's look into this. Let's expose it. Because then if the outcome would have been in his favor, nobody would have questioned anything. They would have said, yeah, he did, he won. They did it, they won. The fact is no, man, he was right away saying, no, I won. And already before the Electoral College met, he already had the office of the president-elect. Right away I thought, okay, something's not right here, right? That was my first clue. Okay. All he would have had to do was say, hey, I would have had a lot of respect for the guy. But as it is, that's not what he did. That's not what he did. If the man had integrity, that's what he would have done. He could have united the whole nation by doing that one thing. And check into it. And if he actually lost, he wouldn't look bad. There was voter fraud. It was all the other people. As it is, if it comes out that there was fraud, and there eventually will, it'll come out. They're already admitting to what they did in Time magazine. They basically said what they did. And it's eventually going to come out. And when that happens, he's not only going to look stupid, he's going to look guilty as hell.
You lose.
Did you ever have these fantasies when you were a kid that your older self came back and talked to you as a kid? Well, that's never happened, so at least that I'm not aware of. But can you imagine that? You know, but it does talk about angels coming and visiting people. You know, as it does talk about ministering spirits that are sent to minister to, you know, angels that are sent to minister unto heirs of salvation, right? So, I mean, we think of this in a spiritual sense, and yes, they do come and we never know they're there, and they kind of bless us and lead us on our way, right? But there are times when you can actually run into an angel who kind of helps push you in a way. You know, I had an experience once. My best friend, an awesome drummer, committed suicide. It really was profound. I had talked to him the night before, and I was going to go get him. We were going to go to church. We were going to talk. I went to get him for church the next day, and his dad came out and told me that he had killed himself that day. I was destroyed. This was my best friend. I loved this guy. I went to church and I just couldn't even focus on what the minister was talking about that day. And I asked to be excused, and he understood. And I just went for a walk. This was in Butte, Montana. It was in October. There was a little bit of snow. So I go out and I'm walking along the tracks, and I see this man sitting there. You know, kind of like you would see someone that was homeless, but he didn't look homeless. He had a blue vest on. And it was like, you know, like Marty McFly in Back to the Future's vest, but it was blue, you know, kind of a vibrant blue. And he was wearing white jeans and some kind of white shirt because you could see the sleeves. He had shoulder-length hair, dark. But he didn't have a beard or facial hair of any kind. I mean, he looked clean-shaven. And he was wearing white, and he was clean. So the chances of him being homeless, and his hair didn't look bad. It didn't look like it hadn't been washed. It looked clean. I'm not saying that he wasn't or he was, but you know, he looked clean and he didn't look homeless, okay? And he was there. He'd made a little fire there, and there wasn't a lot of snow. It wasn't a lot of snow. It was just little patches here and there. And there was little patches over by where he was. And, but he was making a little fire. You know, it wasn't a big raging fire. It was just a little fire. I'm pretty sure it was going. But the interesting thing is I remember talking to him. I can't tell you what we said. But he, I had told him that my best friend killed himself, and he was very encouraging. Didn't seem shocked by anything I was saying. He was very encouraging in what he said, and I felt better after I talked to this guy. And so I left, and the very next day, I was curious. So I walked back down there. I didn't live that far from where that was. I walked back down to where he was at, and it didn't look like anybody had been there. It didn't look like there'd been a fire there. There were the rocks where a fire would have been. Like you put the campfire rocks around and you put the sticks. It didn't look like there'd been, like there'd been any embers or anything. And there were no footprints except for my own. And I remember that because of that. It didn't appear that there had been anybody there. Did he just miss all the patches when he was walking around? I guess that's possible. But it didn't look like anybody'd been there in that spot. There was no signs of anybody except my own footprints, which were still there. I mean, I was definitely... There's a scripture about angels that are sent as ministering spirits to those that are heirs of salvation. Now this is brought around. It is God doesn't exist in time, but outside of time. God's eternal. So God can see the beginning of the end, like time is a big map, and He can point to things on the map. So God can see who's there at the end. God can see what kind of, paths you take in life, and if He's able to turn you back,
Come with me if you want to learn.
God can look and see in your life, no matter what scenario you take, does it save you, right? Because there's just people that no matter what scenario they take in life, they just never come to God. It's interesting though that he sends these angels to minister, to help you on your way. You know, because he knows who makes it. Not because they're predestined, but because he can see the beginning from the end. I don't think you could go back in time and cause somebody not to be born. Say you went back in time and killed Hitler. These are things that are meant to happen. You know, even in the scriptures, it tells us that there is a day appointed by God where he will judge the nations. He will judge the world, right? He will judge all the souls. There's a time appointed. That can't be changed. All right. It says that desolations have been decreed in Daniel. It's talking about towards the end times that there is destruction, there is deaths, there's bad things that are set to happen, that have to happen, and horrible things like the Holocaust were destined. I mean, you can read the prophets, and you can see where the Holocaust happened if you read the prophets in the Bible. You know, God talking about turning his face away from them. Time is not something that can be changed. You know, I think that if we had the power to go back in time, that time would repair itself. Because time has a definitive operation. I believe that there are certain things in our lives that God may have an order for us. Say we have we have a destiny that God has provided for us. I think that even if we go this way or that way during our life, you know, God doesn't force us to walk a certain way. We can go this way and it will still eventually bring us back to the same point. Maybe we might not meet Miss Wright, say, at this point, but maybe we meet her in the future. You know, maybe you were supposed to meet her here, but you actually meet her here. Say you have a destiny to become a famous musician or actor, and you were supposed to get your break here, but there was some delays and things happen, but you eventually make it here, say 20 years later. I think that certain destinies are gonna happen. This week I would do the Terminator series. So I just watched this. I came into contact with all the movies. And, you know, when I was a teenager, I really loved the Terminator with Arnold Schwarzenegger. This movie is awesome. The Terminator 2, which is twice as awesome. I mean, it really is. This is a good movie. Then there's The Rise of the Machines. It's not as good as Terminator 2, but it's not that bad. Terminator Salvation, I heard some not so good things about this, but it's not that bad. It's actually not a bad movie. It kind of goes forward and shows what's going on after. Then there's Genesis. Genesis, when it says the best Terminator since T2 Judgment Day. No, it's not. Terminator 2 Genesis, or Terminator Genesis starts out pretty good. Although they've got a guy playing Kyle Reese, like from the first movie, who does not even look close to him. And they have him, right in the beginning, they have him go back in time. This is kind of what I wanted to see the whole time, was, you know, where they were in the future and showing him sending Kyle back. But then they change the whole storyline. They do a whole Back to the Future 2 in it. And it's not a good movie. This one, Dark Fate. This is where they brought James Cameron back into it. Is the worst one of them all. It sucks. To recap, I liked the original a lot. I liked Judgment Day a lot. Terminator 3, it's not as good as the first two. It's not. But it's not bad. I didn't not like it. Terminator Salvation, I liked it. I thought it was a pretty good movie. But these two, oh my gosh.